Let's go. Game 1 of this best of 3 in the round robin group. In the top right, as the red Protoss, he is Hellraiser.
Of course, in the bottom left side, we know that this man is not here to play a couple of good games in the group stage or maybe make it into the quarterfinals. Nope, he's here to win this entire tournament, and his journey starts right here, right now, nice and chrome. Bottom left side, hailing from Finland, it is Serral.
So not a particularly great game last time, I guess, on this map. But I did say that Hellraiser has some really cool builds, and I totally meant it. Super cool. Even if it doesn't necessarily win that game, at least it keeps him on his toes. Serral has shown maybe more weakness lately to some of these cheeses than the best year that he had back in 2018, right? But it's really hard to compare anyone to their absolute best year like that. And it's usually not with the other matchups too. It's usually we're talking about the ZDZ, the other Zergs who really want to take #1 spot. So, I mean, I wanted to give Hellraiser some credit, but if we're going to go into a normal game, then we got to talk about the tricky things in a macro game that can occur. And one of the trickiest things, some Zergs still have problems with it, some feel like it's been getting okay, are the Adept Resident Enclaves openers, right? DTs or not, but yeah, it can be very tricky to deal with, kind of forces you to react to them. But in that reaction, you don't necessarily feel that comfortable as a macro Zerg. It is Ice and Chrome, though. It feels to be one of the longest maps, even though it's the same as like Eternal Empire. It still feels like it's so long.
Yeah, it's massive as well when you go towards the top and the right bottom side. It just feels like there's so much room and so many attack paths to work with. And I gotta say, Hellraiser was super annoying with his probe for like legit a minute and a half straight, occupying these mineral patches. You can see Serral spamming his drone to mine the minerals, and then he's spamming his probe to like mine for a split second and cancel it again. Whenever people do this against me, it's like only the top players in general that really do this. And I'm always like, man, try hard, just let me mine, And I always kind of secretly hope that they mess it up, so they start mining the full minerals just one time. But Hellraiser did a good job there. I did have a little smile on my face as well when I saw Serral send a drone to the corner of his base just to check. Before he was going up to 3 bases, he did take a look at the low ground there, the third, to make sure that no pylon was being produced, because it takes a little while for these overlords to get to the other side of the map. So Serral did indeed not forget. Look at this, Hellraiser opening up with Blink here on Ice and Chrome.
Yeah, that is very interesting. It could be deceiving as well if an Overlord was on the Twilight Council right now, which is not what's happening. But yeah, it's not what you expect. A lot of it is like, I feel like if you're like, okay, this guy's going to try and trip me up, it's got to be Adepts right now. That's just something that you can, even with the way you use the Adepts, can be really tricky. So getting that 2-base Blink attack can actually be quite a surprise. I'm going to bring up an old name here, but he was in the qualifiers, Nurchio. Fell victim to this against Goblin quite a bit, actually. So it was one of those things where he seemed prepared for everything but 2-base Blink Stalker, because it seems to be only recently coming back into play.
Ooh, is he going to warp in that gateway as well? He is. I think Serral at this point can already kind of be like,
Yeah. Yeah, 7. Wait, that's 5 gateways in total I can count?
Yep. Yeah.
5 gateways in total. Still, more than the 4 you would see with Resident Enclaves, right?
Yeah. Now, I think in general, Serral doesn't really like going up against these builds. There was a very cool fight a while ago that I saw on Everdream, where basically a Protoss had an absolutely horrific start and then went for this attack. And I'm like, well, this is kind of it. This is not really going anywhere, but let's just see what's possible. It was Australia, actually, at the Stay-at-Home Story Cup. And he got so much value out of these Stalkers, and it just kept on going on forever. I actually think that could have been Serral against Australia, if I'm not mistaken, on Everdream. And that game, Serral had a very good start. This game, obviously, nothing has really happened yet. So let's see how Serral decides to tackle the problem of the Blink Stalkers this time. I don't want to call this an all-in, but this is one of these builds where I don't often see Protoss players really go up to 3 bases very quickly behind it either, right? Like, they're really kind of putting all their eggs in one basket, and they want to get at least very far ahead after this Blink Stalker opening.
I know exactly what you mean. Like, it has some flexibility. It's not 7 or 8 gateways, but we're talking about a lot of things missing if it does go into a macro game, which we'll talk about if that happens. Right now, it's all about the action. It's all about if Serral can hold. He built a spine crawler to help out in a pretty conservative area. It can now help with the roaches. He's going to go for more lings to actually stop the stalkers, get them held in place for the roaches to tackle them, because those roaches are not speedy. A lot of lings come from behind, exactly what I was talking about, and already forcing them to use just blink and warp prism blink to try and save these stalkers. It's not going so hot. The queens are even come with this, and this actually looks like a disaster for Hellraiser.
Yep, Serral took this super serious the way he should have been, and this is an absolute beatdown at this point. You are not supposed to be losing more resources than the Zerg pretty much ever. It's obviously 2 base against 3. Serral realizes that he has completely crushed his attack up to this point, so he can now start his lair. 8 stalkers went down while only a single roach went down. And even though 32 Zerglings went down, that's completely okay. I mean, Hellraiser is going up to 3 bases. When Serral sees this, he's probably going to smile. It's like, how dare you? I just killed 8 stalkers in the center of the map. You have no right to expand. And Hellraiser is going to be forced to cancel it. An amazing start for Serral over here.
You absolutely are supposed to stick around much longer than that with the stalkers. You know, threaten warp-ins, kind of make them guess as to how you're going to play the follow-up out. And instead, he just got obliterated. Easy access to his 3rd base for the lings. And now he's stuck on nothing but stalkers. I was going to talk about how you wouldn't have a lot of immortals, how you're not going to have any storm anytime soon. Well, especially what Hellraiser's doing. He's going to be going up to 2 Stargates, really trying to change up the tech path. But that means he just can't keep this 3rd Nexus. I'm actually surprised he's trying.
Yep, he is going to try. He's going to believe in the power of the shield battery, but I'm with you, Jess. There are simply not enough Protoss units over here, and the Protoss units that are here, they don't have that much DPS, right? Stalkers are good at avoiding the fight, at blinking away from the fight. They are not good at actually standing there and holding the location. If I was Serral, I would kind of just kill the Nexus, but it seems like Serral is eager to potentially just end this game. Maybe can unpower these 2 gateways in the front. That'd be kind of cool. I mean, when the Oracles show up, they might actually keep Hellraiser safe, but if Hellraiser loses his Nexus, he's still in all kinds of trouble. And now he's also forced to reveal his strategy. You know, you don't really want to reveal the Oracles that quickly. I think he was hoping to go up to 4 or 5 Oracles before ever revealing them, and then potentially dealing a lot of damage. At this point, he's forced to use them defensively. And this game is just, it's kind of painful. Losing 15 probes as well during all of that, by the way. GG. I don't hate this GG timing at all. I understand it's a big tournament. You want to do your best, but playing a game out like this, there's really no point to it.
Yeah, I think he just kind of took a second, reevaluated what he had, and was like, you know what? No, it's not playing out. Yeah, I feel like that is definitely one of those builds that is trying to take advantage of what is currently scaring Zergs, the adept thing. And if they figure it out as quickly as Serral did, just count the number of gateways, see the gas still being mined entirely. I think that's when it starts to really look quite poor. And that's what I'm going to attribute the massive success of Serral to, is that he got such a good scout.
And he took it super serious, right? Completely stopped droning at like 43, then even lost a couple drones because he made a spine crawler. Never went up to lair. This wasn't one of these like, oh, I want to get roach speed. He's like, nope, I just want to get as many units as possible. Make sure I don't get into this awkward spot where I'm barely defending, but I'm losing roaches for free, and Protoss is just showing off with his blink stalkers. Let's shut this party down before it ever even got started. And that is exactly happened with that awesome link flank that he had in the center.
Yeah. Also really cool that he brought the queens along, really just like you are not even going to be able to warp in, even if I didn't have enough units. So to wholly overwhelm you like that, like he was just, even at that spine crawl, which ended up not helping whatsoever. Like, you're right, like he totally took it seriously. I think it can be scary for some other Zergs too, not to get a lair until that's over with as well. When we do have a couple of Dark Shrine builds coming into play, you know, they start off with one thing, but then they actually sneakily add on a Dark Shrine. But yeah, Serral just, his reaction was exactly correct. There was not even any of those like precautionary spore crawlers that sometimes go down. It's just, it's going to be hard to beat.
You know, it's funny because most of the time when I see this build, I truly see a lot of commitment coming out of the Protoss side, where they really just want to keep this up for a long time. And while I said it, I still believed it. But this game, I really actually had the feeling that Hellraiser's idea was, let's go up to 3 bases very quickly just behind this. We'll use this as an opener, maybe hope for an overreaction, but then still save your stalkers and then get into a good, comfortable spot while entering the mid game. because he already had that probe on location. He had enough minerals once for a Nexus, but then he wiped in a few more Stalkers. But I think then everything just spiraled out of control because he got surrounded and he lost all the Stalkers. But I had the feeling that his plan was actually to go up to 3 bases very quickly off the back of this Blink Stalker opening, which is, once again, a little bit uncommon as well. Is everything that I'm going to see today just weird, Jess? Like, is it one of these days?
I think for this match, you got to expect Hellraiser to be the one that's doing the like non-expected. You know, that last match, if they had played totally normal TVPs, I'm like, yeah, of course, you guys think you can beat each other. But for Hellraiser, I mean, you might be looking at this as like, I got to do something kind of weird. And in that case, it was not only a build that isn't totally common, it was also a way of playing it that wasn't totally common. If he actually scares Serral and has him constantly defending and then gets a third Nexus, gets to Mass Oracle, we're calling him a genius. But Serral absolutely played it perfectly and didn't give him any room to breathe. So now we'll be heading into Everdream as our next map. Very familiar. So a shorter map than Ice and Chrome. And we'll see what else Hellraiser has in store, because I do think we're looking to him to kind of set the pace for the series and the games.
Not a horrible map for cannon rushes, but I don't think we're going to see it here. In the bottom left side, we're looking at the main base of our Ukrainian Protoss player representing Clash. He's down 0-1. It is Hellraiser.
In the top right, he generally doesn't need an introduction, but we're going to do it anyways. It is the Blue Zerg, Serral. Nope, not gonna happen. No cannon rush.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that, again, like kind of like that Blink Stalker thing I was talking about with Skilless, might be a little bit too on the nose. Something that Serral is very specifically trying to deal with, but yeah, he's not gonna try it here. And there's gonna be another 16 hatch from Serral, making sure he gets that hatchery down. Not that Hellraiser's been sending out super early probes.
It's worth mentioning, by the way, that of course Serral was among one of the 8 players that got invited to this tournament based upon EPT points up to this point, and of course performances in the previous years as well. So 8 players were invited. Everybody else had to qualify. You already touched upon this in the pre-show. These qualifiers were a lot of fun. They were long, but super cool games, super cool results. Hellraiser was one of these guys that obviously I expect to make it, right? Like, Hellraiser may not be top 8 or top 16 even in Europe, but he's definitely like right behind that, probably on the edge of top 16. And after the first 2 qualifiers were done, Wednesday and Friday, Hellraiser was still not in. And at that point, you know, even if you are a good player, and even if you are supposed to make it, it gets pretty scary. And I'm sure that he really felt the pressure as well. But in that final qualifier, he did actually manage to pull through in a pretty convincing way. Looked good all around. And he took down Christiana in the final round of the qualifier, 3-0. And Christiana is actually kind of a dangerous, scary Protoss as well in PvP. So all good in the end for Hellraiser. But it got a little dicey for him to actually enter this tournament.
You know, a lot of the European qualifiers, when we're talking about the not, you know, top 8 that were invited here, they are a lot about if, you know, are you good at PvP? There's a lot of Protosses mingling around, you know, just under that top 16 that are constantly fighting each other. So it wasn't too surprising for me to see Hellraiser 3-0. Christiana, I think I actually cast that, but yeah, it did get a little bit scary for him for sure. I think the first time you're like, oh, 8 people qualify, that's so many, you know, round of 16, I'm already in the qualification spot, but yeah, you do start to worry a little bit when the third qualifier comes around.
Yeah, especially because there were like 10 players that were all above 6,300, 6,400 MMR that were not qualified yet for the main event. And if you have 3 of those in your single bracket, that's where it becomes really hard, right? Like, yeah, there is going to be some seeding, but it could have been worse for Hellraiser. If I take a look at the final matches that some of the other guys had to go through, and even somebody like Gongfu, that I really consider one of the best Protoss players in Europe, he also just barely squeezed in that final qualifier, and he had an absolutely mental crazy game 5 against B. So it really wasn't easy for all of these good Europeans to even make it into this event. And I think that kind of says it all, right? Overall, the level is going to be very high. And you've got good players, and then you have Serral, who is like always wondering, like, what is so difficult about all of that? Is like, first of all, I get invited. Second of all, even if I wouldn't get invited, I'd make it in anyway, immediately, without dropping a map. It's like, well, that's you, Serral, okay?
Yeah. It does seem like kind of the story right now of Europe is that you have a lot of promising young Protoss. So actually qualifiers are Protoss heavy, not the meme Zerg heavy. have a lot of our, veterans who we see all the time in the top 16 that do still represent Europe as a Zerg country, or a region rather. So yeah, it's kind of funny, but one day maybe the Protosses will rise and start taking down, like Lambo and a laser, and then eventually make it to Serral. Is today that day for Hellraiser? I don't think we're feeling it so much, but he is trying to set up a different game here for sure. For game number 2, we got 3 Oracles, and obviously more of a macro game.
I've seen a weird build, and I think this was Hellraiser as well, where he actually just kind of keeps building oracles out of a single Stargate. It's like, okay, double oracle, cool. Triple oracle. It's like, I don't see that very often anymore. And it's like 5 oracles? Like, how did you get 5 oracles out of a single Stargate? But he has done that stuff before. He's not doing it this time, as we see the first Phoenixes in production. This oracle harass is not very pretty so far, as even though that oracle survives, it took a lot of real damage, and only getting 2 drones up to this point. I think if you're Hellraiser, you're hoping for a little bit more than what you got so far.
Yeah, just really good focus fire. If you can focus fire the queens and the spore crawler, and there's 2 queens there too, it's really difficult to actually get away with any amount of oracles. The adepts also making their way through is scouted by Serral. They're actually not going to do it. With that many adepts, you definitely expect them to be on the other side of the map, but I guess he also has to evaluate, keeping his third actually alive and not getting that quick cancel. So little conserve, and then he's going to go for it.
Maybe there is some potential, because there is only 5 or 6 roaches out on the map, that if these adepts can just find a place where those roaches are not at, or the queens are not at, there is a lot of potential here in Hellraiser's build. But in my opinion, this is also one of these openings where it's like, you gotta get something done. Like triple oracle and 6-7 adepts is not gonna scale very well into the mid game. We see multiple stasis traps actually going down, but Serral is like, hey, Stats and Zest used to do this against me. I got some good practice against this. It's all good. And he loses only a single drone to those stasis traps for now. The adepts might finish up here, because this middle line is a little bit exposed. Now, if you get 6-7 drones here, it's not all that bad, and that is absolutely what he's going to get here. Okay, I kind of like it. I'm okay with it here for Hellraiser.
He's going to lose all of his adepts, but how many lings are we talking about left over? Just literally 2. So not much of a counter force. And, well, the third base is actually pretty well set up, even with a shield battery. So nicely done. One's going to have the micro against the stasis trap. So the one on the main base, not so bad.
Yeah, I kind of, Serral left 1 drone there. I was like, that's actually kind of cool. He just knows there's going to be another stasis trap. But that stasis trap was big, and now grabbed like 5 additional drones there in the main base. In all honesty, this is pretty playable for Hellraiser. He's only down 8 workers, which is very standard in this matchup. Serral is going up to 4 bases, but it's not crazy quick. Serral can't really properly attack right now, because the best thing for Hellraiser is that all of his oracles are still alive. And yes, I kind of missed it, but he kept building oracles. He's got 5 of them now. Oracle number 6 is on the way. You're not really worried about Ravages if you got 6 oracles on your side of the map.
You're right about that. I also noticed it. I was like, what are scouting the middle of the map? What is this? And it was the 2 oracles. And I think they were intentionally placed to make sure he could catch any sneaky run-bys onto his third, when he attempted a push that he wasn't paying attention to after losing the adept map control. So that was kind of neat. And then, yeah, at the end of the day, you're going to have 6 or 7 plus oracles. And yeah, wow. Roach Ravager attack's not going to be too scary. It's going to be on the defense, though, as Stalkers move forward. +1, and Blink is trying to finish up. It's not actually done yet, but it looks like Serral's not quite prepared, so we should have both of those upgrades. Ooh, maybe. All the stasis traps are kind of scary to go through.
This is actually super cool. I kind of wish he would have just gone for it almost immediately and just activate Pulsar Beam on all 5 oracles, because the amount of NTR wasn't that high. Now, Hydralist Den is done, so Hydras will start showing up soon, and that's when these oracles are a lot less effective. There are so many stasis traps here. This seems to be Hellraiser's moment. He is going to activate Pulsar Beam. You need to avoid Cross the Ball. That's what he's doing. I'm not sure if this is good enough. Even though a couple of queens are going down, the remaining oracles are running out of energy. And even Hellraiser feeling confident with his forward blink there. 9 Hydras on the way, 28 Zerglings. Can he really keep pushing?
You know, if you had a Warp Prism, I feel a lot more confident. You did something cool when I was casting your games, where you took a forward third, so you also had faster reinforcements. But he is reinforcing from his third base currently. I think that's just going to cut away any potential momentum that was there, because it did look kind of close, you know, but it was really good of Serral to immediately form those Ravagers, to bring all of his queens. I think he had 6 queens. He brought all of them forward to make sure those oracles didn't snowball either. So we do just kind of bounce off each other, and 4 base to 4 base would look very good for Hellraiser if these lings don't cancel it.
I think with a couple of force fields here and there's still some oracles, a forward blink, you're going to be okay. And that is exactly what happens. I do, by the way, like that you brought up that I took a forward third and you thought it was cool. I like to think my playstyle's pretty cool as well, Jess. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no, I was actually with you as well. What I loved about Serral pulling all the queens to the center is that a forward base in this matchup is obviously crucial, right, for Zerg. And if all those queens are not there, you can say, like, yeah, Serral can disengage. But if he disengages, if he goes up the ramp, he is going to lose at hatchery. And then he's actually in a world of trouble. And he knows that. And I think that's why he just pulled all the queens immediately, and it turned out to be a correct call. Hellraiser is going into carriers. I mean, I love it, but is it a little too soon? Because this seems like a pretty intimidating Zerg force, even though there aren't that many upgrades. There are quite a few banelings, and if Serral can just grab like 20 probes here, that would already be a massive victory for him.
Yeah, I mean, going that fast into tech is going to lose you out in the army supply, and Hellraiser, oh god, also taking some pretty big baneling hits. He was all types of clumped up. He is still keeping an okay supply overall. Those oracles are actually helping. He's building them 2 at a time. They want to get involved in the action, but I mean, they're helping his army supply. They're not actually useful in direct fights so much, and he knows it. One last attempt, has to tap out. Serral is going